Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the First 90% podcast. I'm so excited to be sitting down with Todd Yellin, who is not only the ex-head of product for Netflix, where he spent 17 years, but he's also a filmmaker, very interesting person, very, very amazing, dynamic speaker as well. Welcome, Todd. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. This is exciting.
Amazing. So, Todd, tell us a little bit about your journey of the last 15, 17 years. How you joined Netflix, what did you do there? What are you doing now?
All right. I was a filmmaker before I was at Netflix, and I was a documentarian, and then I made my first fictional narrative movie. And I was just finishing up in the movie, and my wife and I had an 18-month-old daughter, and then my wife told me she was pregnant with a second, and I was an independent filmmaker. In post-production, I go, I got to support now 2 kids. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so just at that time, Netflix, which was a tiny company at the time,
and this is
January 2006.
2006.
January 2006. Actually, it was December 2005. They got in touch with me. They said, we'd love you to interview for this job. And I was like, I'm making my movie. I just want to direct movies. I don't know. But then I was looking at my wife's tummy that was growing and growing. And I thought, sure, I'll talk to you. I could use a little money in the bank account. Short story long, or long story short, I got the job, and my plan was to work there 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years and out, because, pay the bills, look good, and then I'm going to go back to my movie making. And suddenly I realized I was infected with the excitement of Netflix. We were changing the world of entertainment. We were doing some super exciting things.
Yeah.
And so my job there at first was I was hired to do personalization, which personalization is, you have so many movie choices to put the right title in front of the right person at the right time. Because
way back in 2006.
Yeah, early days of that technology. It wasn't very good, but we tried. And so imagine you have thousands of choices of movies and TV shows. The typical person is going, you take a guess. You go to a service like Netflix, nowadays, you're scanning through Netflix. How many titles do you think the average person's going to look at before they say, forget it, and they jump off?
Right now?
Yeah. How many titles would they look at before they go, nah, not today?
15.
Not bad. We'll give them a B on that one. Around 40 titles, on average 40 titles. They'll look at them for like 2 seconds each. No. Skim, row, no, out. So personalization is super important because if they're only going to look at 40 and you have thousands, you better put the right one on top or else they're not going to use you. Okay, so after that, 2 years passed. We had 2 kids. The bank account was looking better. You would think I would leave, but it was super exciting. My role kept on expanding until eventually I ran all the product at Netflix, and very demanding job, but very exciting job.
So you didn't join as head of product. You joined only to work on personalization.
I was a product manager in charge of personalization, and I became a head of product. I was there 17 years, like you said. I became head of product like 6-7 years into my career there.
So how do you go from being an independent filmmaker to a product in a tech company? How does that happen?
This story's going to end. We're going to bore your audience because this is a lot of storytelling. All right, how that happened was, now we have to go back further in time, another flashback in our movie. Let's dissolve the screen. Okay, flashback. How that happened was, I was in New York City, where I'm from, many years ago, and this was in 1999.
Okay.
Last century, man, it's a long time ago. 1999. I'm writing film reviews for a small publication. I'm making some documentary films, living my life, not a lavish, but I'm living my life in my modest apartment, happy as an artist. And Silicon Valley was starting to explode on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And they were giving money to any startup. A warm body off the street. You have an idea, we'll give you money. Back then, it was the big bubble that was going on.
Yeah,
99 was crazy.
Yeah.
And my wife and I knew a guy and his wife who were starting up. He was the CEO, she was the head of technology. They were starting up a service that was going to help kids actually help parents give their kids movies that are appropriate, TV shows that are appropriate, and recommend stuff. And this was before we had kids, but I had a lot of expertise in movies. I was a film critic. Went to film school. And so they hired me to run the content of their service. And we moved out to San Francisco. And once you're in an internet startup, any startup, it's always like pick up a shovel and start digging. It's not only just writing the content. I was doing whatever I can help. So I learned about product management and the technology, and a guy I worked with there. Then I went back down to LA, started making my movie stuff again. And then this guy was at Netflix. He was at that company, and I knew tech from that startup.
Wow.
And I also knew content and entertainment. And he thought I'd be a good guy to bring into Netflix with an expertise in both.
Wow. So it all ties together, right? And when you joined Netflix, how many people company was it?
Less than 250 people.
And if you don't mind telling the audience what Netflix was doing at the time, because it was not doing what it's doing today.
Yeah. Okay. Do you guys remember they had these silver discs? Now, if you're a little younger, you might not remember. They were called DVDs. And those DVDs, you'd slip in, and that's how you'd watch a movie. This was before streaming. This was before the internet. You can click and play. And so that's what Netflix was doing. And within the first year, we launched a really crappy, subpar experience that was streaming, that was so bad, we gave it to people for free who were getting these DVDs shipped to them in the mail. And we weren't in India yet. We weren't in the UAE yet. We were no place but the US. And we were a small company.
Yeah.
We were like a small town. You know everyone's name. They come down the hallway. It was only enough Netflix. It was a freaking global megalopolis of a huge company.
Yeah.
And now it's the biggest entertainment company in the world.
Absolutely. So you've spent so much time at Netflix. It's almost like you are an insider, right? You have all the stories, all the information, all the sort of knowledge about how Netflix.
I don't know if I'd call myself an insider, but yes, I was on the executive team at Netflix, and I had the privilege of helping to guide a lot of the strategy and run a large team. And I got the privilege of sitting at the table with a lot of brilliant people, trying to make hard decisions about how to become what we eventually became, which was changing the world of entertainment.
So what can you tell us about how a company goes from being a tiny startup, doing a completely different thing, to becoming one of the biggest entertainment company in the world? What are the key things that you think Netflix got right, and what are the mistakes it avoided that maybe some other companies do today?
First off, Netflix is far from perfect. It is a very flawed company. Then again, we're very flawed people, and everyone's flawed. So it's not like, oh, Netflix did things perfectly. We tripped. We made lots of mistakes along the way, and it's well documented. But to its credit, the founder of the company, Reed Hastings, who was the CEO in all the years I was there, like I said, he left right after I left. Think of the name of the company. Even before I got there, they could have called themselves DVD Entertainment or DVD. But he saw the vision was it was eventually going to go to the internet. So it's having the vision in your head about where are things, not where are things now, but where are they going?
Yeah.
So he called the company Netflix, Internet, movies on the internet. And even that was before streaming. So the vision was there about what it was going to become eventually. So you had the vision. The other thing was, like I said, we failed lots of times. It's creating a culture that allows for failure, because the only way to innovate is to realize that you're going to fail a lot, and you have to create a safe environment for the people on your teams to realize, you know what, I could try something. I could try something really radical. It's probably not going to succeed, but as long as we learn something from it, it's a different kind of success because we're getting smarter. And so we experimented a lot. Our CEO, Reed, was a gambler, not in a bad way. But
he took risks.
He took risks. He was willing to lean into risk. And so I'm fond of saying that sometimes in your career, and I don't care what you do, it's important to lean so far forward that sometimes you fall on your face. And you get up, you dust yourself off, and you try something else, but learn from it. Don't keep on making the same mistake again, but learn from it. And I think that was the secret.
When people say that fail and fail fast and learn from it, a lot of founders, in my experience, they don't understand what it really means. because they feel that, oh, failure is good, but they keep failing at the wrong things without learning from it, as you said. Is there a process to sort of document, okay, this is what we are going to be experimenting. We tried it, but it failed, and this is what we learned from it. Is it important to follow that sort of process, or it's not so important? It's just fail fast, learn from it, go ahead.
No, I think you're right on. I think you said it better than I could say it, which is, it's not just fail fast, do anything. Yeah, we'll do that. Randomly, we'll do that, and we'll do that. No. It's, in a way, trying to very intentionally, what you're trying can have a really big upside. What is the investment on it? And what are you really trying to get done? And I think the problem with a lot of startups, you have a founder, you get filled with a founder by definition. Someone who founds a company has to have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's confidence and then there's hubris. And hubris is thinking, oh, well, no, this is a great idea. And then there's getting so narcissistic and involved in what your own idea is that it's like, yeah, we'll try that. That's not the way to go. The way to go is, as a founder, get the best people around you and realize that you can't do everything. Know what you're good at, know what you're weak at, hire for your weakness, not for your strength, hire differently than you, and then tap into those other brains around you and listen carefully and take the possibility of what might not work and what might work. And so that's the kind of fail. It's not fail fast necessarily, it's fail smart.
Yeah. How important do you think is diversity? We hear so much about, you should have diverse views, diverse people, different cultures, etc., etc. Can you give a practical example of how diversity helps in decision making or taking a company forward?
First off, I'll give you something about how diversity helps in just an arbitrage situation.
Sure.
So arbitrage is, as I'm sure you know, when you're a trader or something like that, you get an advantage over other people because you exploit a weakness in the system.
Yeah.
And sometimes the weakness in the system is discrimination and bias. So I heard someone today at the conference that we're talking at, and at this conference, it was a woman who's running her own VC firm or something. And one thing she said is, look, only 2% of the money is going to startups started by women.
Yes.
And I agree that, there's something to arbitrage. If you're a VC, if you start giving into those companies, they're discriminating against you, you can have it. But what I didn't agree with her is she goes, and these companies founded by women tend to have a higher success rate because women have more of a long-term vision. And like I said, I think we're all flawed. Men, women, we're equally flawed. I don't think the women are better or worse. I look at it as human beings are human beings. The way I look at it is the reason her company is smart is because they're using arbitrage. They're realizing these other companies, they don't even know they're discriminating against these women. So we can take advantage of the system. Sometimes in diversity, when I would hire someone, I'd go we can get people that they're not hiring because they're discriminating against. Sure, I'll take them in and I'll leverage their brains. The other way you can use arbitrage is there's a lot of introverted people out there. There's a lot of people that aren't speaking up. So in a lot of companies, it's like whoever speaks the loudest, the most, uses up the most airtime, they're listened to. And these other people, they can't get the words out, but there are a lot of good ideas in there, but they can't get the words out.
Yeah.
So if you create an environment and a system where you can tap into the loud people, the quiet people, the introvert, the extrovert, you can tap into their brains. You can leverage that arbitrage and I'm getting everyone's idea. And sometimes at Netflix, an example of the culture I helped create is I was a big fan of Google Docs.
Okay.
And the reason I like Google Docs is I wanted some people are better communicating, speaking.
Yeah.
Some people are better communicated, writing. Some people are too shy to speak up in that crowd. If I made everyone write things down and put it on a Google Doc, then and I'd have meetings where we would have round table debates about stuff. Some people would never say anything. They were much more comfortable using Google Doc and commenting in the doc in the margin. So I get their voice in a different way. So that, once again, you're tapping into what some people might not tap into as well as they could using that arbitrage. I think that's important.
So I hear you say that arbitrage is one of the ways, one of the levers that you can use.
And that's why diversity is important. If you're really thinking, and going back to your original question, if you're thinking diversity and there's arbitrage to be had there, then I'm going to hire people and I'm going to get more out of some people than everyone else's diversity. Diversity is also important for so many other reasons. It's important because at Netflix, we're a global company. If everyone looks like me and talks like me, A, it would be damn boring. B, it would drive me crazy because I can't stand my own company sometimes. But most importantly, we have customers that are in Brazil or India or Germany, and they think differently, or Japan. I want to have those kinds of, I want them to think like the customer.
Yeah.
I want that kind of diversity on the team as well. And of course, there's the obvious thing about diversity, which is society has wronged people of minority cultures, and it's good to do morally the right thing. But I'm just talking about from a business,
from just a performance point of view,
from a success and performance. The arbitrage of it, the getting the perspective of all personalities, because your business is going to have all kind of personalities that you're serving, and so forth, is important.
Awesome. In terms of if you look at people who are able to succeed in an environment of a startup where there's sort of uncertainties, you're taking risks, you're challenging people to put themselves out there with ideas that have a massive chance of failure, right? What are the qualities in people that you see help them succeed? What are the commonalities between people who are succeeding versus people not so much?
Yeah, I think you can expand it past the startup. I think it's people who are willing to, they have confidence, but they're willing to take their ego and put it over here and listen to others, and willing to tap into other ideas where they have a point of view. They're not, here's what I would try to understand when I was interviewing someone and finding out people who would be successful. I didn't want someone who was a jellyfish. And I didn't want someone which means they didn't have a spine, and whatever you say, they're going to repeat back to you. And if you disagree with them, they'll go, oh yeah, you're right, no matter what you say. And I also didn't want someone who's stubborn, no matter what you say, you can't influence them. So I'll tell you how I would do that in the hiring. I think the interviewing one-on-one is really hard, and I think it's very inaccurate.
Okay.
I would much rather have someone come in prepared with something and present something to like 5 people. And I'd want the 5 people, and I'd always be one of them, the 4 other people I'd recruit to be very different. And what I would want to do is when someone would present ideas, I would purposely challenge what they were saying. And I would want to see, are they jellyfish-like, no spine? They're just going to bend over. They'll agree because they're trying to please me. Or whatever I say, they're going to always say, no, this is the way, and they're going to be stubborn. I want someone who has their volume turned to the right level, not too extreme this way and not too extreme that way. So I think it's important to have the right level of flexibility, but not be inflexible, not be perfectly flexible, that right level. That's important for hiring.
And does that correlate well with people who succeed versus people who do not?
Look, I never took a scientific data study of this,
just from a gut feel.
But I had seen a lot of people, and yes, I think that has been a key aspect. Being able to, the ability. Another thing, we had a saying at Netflix, we do not tolerate brilliant jerks.
Okay.
So another thing is like, you can have someone who's just a genius. They're amazing. They have great ideas. But look, when you work in a company, it's collaborative. I don't care if the company is 4 people or 4,000 people. It's a collaborative environment. And when someone is a jerk and it's always their idea and they don't know how to interact in society, then they shouldn't be in society. And I don't want them in my society, at least. And so we would, even if someone was getting a lot of good work done, if they were a brilliant jerk, then we would let them go. Because you can't tolerate. So someone who knows how to, they don't have to be the most affable, the most social person, but they have to know at least basically how to work with other people. And that's important for success too.
Different companies have different cultures, right? Like Netflix might have a different culture, Apple might have a different one, and IBM might have a totally different one. And they all find their ways to succeed. Do you think it's important for people to fit into the culture, or are there some things that transcends different cultures of companies and are common across companies that that do really well.
Yeah. So for those of you who one day want to be interviewers, that was a really good question. So pay attention to what he's saying. That's a good one. So Apple, I would have been fired in like a month.
Okay.
And it's because my personality did not fit that culture, and that culture didn't fit my personality. And Netflix, when I was talking about, the pregnant wife and the ride, and I was only going to be there 2 or 3 years, probably the number one reason I stayed so long wasn't the success only, wasn't just because, I felt like I was being, compensated well. It was really because my personality fit the culture, and the culture fit my personality, and it was a nice fit. At Apple, Apple, is one of the great companies ever created. I know lots of people who worked at Apple.
Yeah.
People who've worked for me before also worked for Apple, vice versa. I have friends because I live in Silicon Valley. In Apple, they do a lot of different projects. And what that guy is working on there or what she's working on over there, they can't tell you. It's very secretive.
Oh, okay.
At Apple, you are like, you don't even know what the other people are doing. You just keep your head down. You work on what you're working. Everything is just highly confidential. At least it was when I was working. We worked with Apple and Netflix because Netflix is on the Apple devices.
Yeah.
So I'd go in there and I'd have a meeting at Apple, and I'd come in with my Netflix backpack I'm always carrying, and it had the Netflix logo. And they didn't want anyone to know that Apple was working with Netflix at their own company.
Oh, really?
So I'd have to put they'd have a piece of black tape I'd have to put on the Netflix logo. When you sign in, usually on most companies, you sign in from what company you're coming from. You don't sign in from the Netflix name because they don't, it's not because they have anything against Netflix, it's because they don't want Apple people to know that they're working with Netflix unless it's announced to the public. And the reason is because when they release new products, they want the whole world to be surprised. And if they let out that someone who's working on Siri and that person's working on the iPhone, and that person's working on the Mac, they don't want them to leak it out to other people. So they're very secretive. But at Netflix, we encourage curiosity and transparency. So you can walk up to anyone and go I'm in the product team. I'm an engineer. And I walk over, or I'm a designer. And I walk over to someone and I go how much did that movie cost? At some companies, I go, that's none of your effing business. That's my side of the company. At Netflix, you always you say what's going on. If someone asks me, what are you guys A/B testing on the product this month? Sure, happy to tell you. So a culture transparency work. So when you said, that's why I love your question. Well done. So when you say, matching the culture you're in, if you're at a company and you're hiring others, you should really see if they're a culture fit. And if you're looking for a job, you should really see if you're a culture fit on the other side and don't fake it, or else you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And I would have been miserable at Apple because I kept on looking over the wall. And they go, keep your eyes on there. And at Netflix, I could ask whatever I want, and I want them to ask me. It's different.
Yeah. In terms of you personally, you, of course, stayed at Netflix for a long time, but you joined as a product manager, and then you rose to become head of product, joined the executive suite. What is your sort of superpower that helped you climb up the ladder and reach where you reached?
I know last time I checked, there was no big S written on my shirt. So I don't know if I have a superpower, but what are my strengths that help me? I'm sorry, I don't want to put it in grand terms since I'm not that cocky about it, but I'm very passionate.
Yeah.
So when I find an idea that either I came up with or someone on my team that's liked, I will do whatever I can to either help someone else or push it myself to get something through and get it done. Because no matter what environment you're working in, I don't care if you're in a tiny startup or a huge company. Huge company, you have to battle through bureaucracy. A tiny startup, you lack resources. So it takes a lot of persistence and passion to drive something from the beginning to the end. And that's filmmaking is so much that way. It takes a long time to make a movie. And so I have kind of a monomaniacal nature sometimes where I am going to see it through and I'm going to get that done. I'm going to drive it from A to Z, whatever.
That's so important for any execution role, right?
Anything or innovation. Take it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to sit in a room, lay down, stare at the ceiling, talk to other people and throw out ideas. There's another thing to go, out of all those ideas, we're going to do that and we're going to do it.
And we're going to do it.
Yeah, and we're actually going to find out if it works or not.
I think most startups actually struggle with that because they come up with ideas, they raise money, they seed round, and then they fail at the execution stage maybe.
At seeing it through and knowing, but also you can't be, here's another thing that you have to balance it with. You asked for what my strength is, but you have to balance it with, you can't be so stubborn and monomaniacal that you don't know when to pull the plug or to pivot. As you know, because you seem to know a lot about startups, a startup often has to pivot multiple times before they find the right magic.
Yeah.
And you have to know, an American expression, you have to know when to hold them and you have to know when to fold them when you're playing. Like, good hand, I'm in. And then, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I get and I've made mistakes where I've gotten so passionate about a project, even during my Netflix days, that I was putting basically good money after bad.
Okay.
I spent too long on that. So you have to learn. This is why you want diversity also. You want parts of you that don't exist for other people on your team. So they go, Todd, I think it's time to end this one.
How much does luck play a role? Especially, Netflix had a crazy run in the pandemic, right? How much of it is luck versus how much of it is determination?
Well, that's a flaw in our psychology because human beings who are successful always think there's almost no luck and I did it and it was me. But if we're being honest with ourselves, of course there's luck. And luck, the biggest luck is in timing.
Timing, yeah, of course.
Because a lot of companies come up with great ideas, but they're either ahead of sometimes ahead of their time. Timing wasn't right. If they would have done it 10 years later, it would have been like they would have done really well. And this has happened throughout history of technology and innovation.
Yeah.
So luck plays a big part, and I think the biggest part of luck is timing.
Yeah. Awesome. So just last couple of questions.
Yeah.
How do you feel about going back into filmmaking?
Oh, it's been good.
How do you make that transition? Do you think it's going to be easy?
So I've been at it for like a year and a half, and the first few months were hard. I'm going to be super honest why they were hard. I won't lie to your fine audience, which is I was running a large team. I was working for a globally known company that was respected, and so I could go anywhere and talk about Netflix, and people would answer my calls, send back emails like this, whatever I want. I could talk to whoever I wanted in any situation. Now I'm just Todd Yellin, filmmaker guy. So now this is back to me when I was younger, and now I got to climb again. Yeah. And so it was a battering to the ego, but I think, if I'm being honest, probably could have used a little battering to the ego and get a little more humble, which is important to maintain. But mostly it's exciting. I'm doing exactly what I want to do.
Okay.
So.
But it's hard. It's hard though?
Oh, it's hard. I've been out on the path raising financing for the movie. We're almost there. I spent all last year with a writing partner writing a script and you have to be open to criticism and send it to people and go, no, I don't understand why that character's doing that. That doesn't make sense. And it's like, if you're humble enough and you're flexible enough, you'll go, you know what? They're probably right. And I've heard that enough, and then change it. So it's hard, but I love it. And I like the challenge.
Awesome. Any final thoughts that you want to share?
Oh, final thoughts about anything else I want to share. So the whole thing is the 90% of we're all formed before we're 6. And then after that, it's like, it's too late. You're done. You're 6 years old. So I was trying to, when I found out the topic of your podcast, 90%, I was trying to think of like, what was I like when I was like 5 or 6 years old?
We would love to know.
That affected what I became for better and for worse. Yeah. And so my mom told me that I was the kind of kid, and this isn't a flattering portrayal of myself. This is the opposite. So bear with me, and I hope you don't dislike me after this. But I was the kind of kid, like there would be a birthday party game and I'm 4 years old and I don't know if they have this in India, but pin the tail on the donkey and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was such a sore loser. I needed to win.
You needed to win.
And so sometimes I was such a sore loser when I was little. I don't remember this. I'm probably blocking it in my mind, but my mom would tell me that my mom would have to stage for me a version where I won. So I would go home and I wouldn't be whining and complaining and maybe even crying, who knows. So part of that competitive spirit I had that was formed, and I think it's sometimes great for my success and sometimes unhealthy. Yeah. But I think that was something I had before I was 6. that's really formed.
No,
me
I think what
now.
you mentioned earlier, right, that you see it through the ideation and the execution that comes from there, because it's that part of you that cannot tolerate not finishing it or not winning it, right? Like not.
That's right.
So yeah, totally.
So
and
it could be pathological, but it's true.
it's true, and the reason it's so true for me is that if you think about any skill that we have, so somebody who's good in sports or music or math, they don't suddenly become good in their 30s. If you're good in math, you've probably been good right from childhood until the day you die.
No, so you find, so since I was so down on me, I'll give you a positive side of when I was little. So I learned to read when I was super young, and I give my parents a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And so I picked it up. I learned to read when I was really young. I love stories. I couldn't get enough.
Exactly.
So storytelling and so forth. And I'll give like I said, I give my parents credit, give how I was raised, how books were really important, how stories are important, and thus I'm a filmmaker, how films are important in stories. And even in my job, telling a good story as a product leader, as an executive in a company is important to inspire people. So storytelling and that kind of thing has been with me since before I was 6, my passion for it. So there you go.
No, absolutely. You're one of the best storytellers that we've had on the podcast, right? Like
that's for your audience to judge.
It's not even like a story. It's just like the way that you're communicating. And we said it when you were on stage earlier. Just the way that you're communicating, just absolutely like mesmerizing in some way.
No, I really like this guy.
But yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for giving your time. It was just amazing.
Really nice meeting you.